Welcome to revAMPd, the #1 amputee podcast hosted by an amputee and brought to you by Dilatory Orthotics and Prosthetics in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm Brian Mosier, the social media advisor for Dilatory, and I also happen to be a left below knee amputee. Let's get into today's episode. How's it going, everyone? My guest today is a right below knee amputee, an adaptive athlete, outdoorsman. He's also a fellow rush foot rebel, Fritz Rudy. Fritz, welcome to revAMPd.
Thanks for having me on, Brian.
Hey, thanks for being on. Hey, so tell me a little bit about your background. When did you first become an amputee?
My amputation was actually July of 2013.
Okay. What led to you becoming an amputee?
In 2012, I was T-boned on my motorcycle.
Oh, jeez.
And And they tried to repair my leg for almost a full year. Went through 13 or 14 surgeries. I lost count.
Wow.
And finally, well, they did save my leg. I mean, hey, they were successful. They saved it, but I couldn't walk on it.
Wow.
So they finally listened to me. I told them day one to take it, and they said, no, they're going to save it, which they did, but I couldn't walk on it. So after a year of struggles, they finally agreed and took it.
It sounds like from knowing about your story and some of the things that you're doing now that your life has actually improved since becoming an amputee.
Absolutely, 100%. Before, up to from the time from my accident up until my amputation, I mean, it was living in sheer dread every single day because the outlook was so grim as far as mobility and everything else. And since the amputation, I have not only, shed the fears and, all the issues I was having when I had the mangled leg, but I've also I've done more since becoming an amputee than I did even before my accident. It's pushed me to try new things, to challenge myself in new ways, take up new hobbies, really stoked my passion for life.
Now, one of the things that I found really interesting about your story was the fact that how long was it after your amputation, your initial amputation, that you were back out fishing? I mean, it was pretty quick, right?
Well, after my initial amputation, I was out the following spring. I was walking. My amputation was July of 2013. I was walking September 11th of 2013. And the following spring, I was out for the opener of trout fishing. I was out back in the rivers.
Wow, that's insane. So how long, you say you had a pretty good timeline there by the time you were walking. What was the recovery like for you? I mean, you've always been, before this happened to you, you're always a pretty active guy. So what was your recovery like going through this?
Well, unfortunately, and this is such a common story, they tried salvage as opposed to amputation. And what happens to everybody who goes through this is there's atrophy and weight gain and, just stiffness of joints and loss of flexibility from basically being chair bound while they're trying to salvage it. And then afterwards you have to, take up ground that you lost, right, to learn how to walk. Overall, it wasn't the worst.
Sure.
I guess. I've been a weightlifter and for most of my life. And so knowing which exercises work, which body parts, and how to focus in on the small muscle groups as opposed to just the big muscle groups, which most of us lower limb amputees know there's a lot more small muscle groups that you're using now.
Right.
It definitely aided in my rehabilitation and recovery. But in my opinion, and of course this is all speculation, it would have been a much shorter time back to what we would consider 100%, if they would have just amputated as opposed to salvage.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Seems to be a common thread among people that have been in your situation that say the same exact thing. So I can see where that could very well be true. So let me ask you, you're in Rush Rogue right now, and you were in the High Pro, or what used to be called the 87 previously to that. Have you used any other feet besides Rush?
I had tried 2 separate carbon fibers. One immediately, like my first foot was a carbon fiber.
Okay.
And then after being on Rush for 6-ish months, my prosthetist and a person from another company tried talking me into another carbon fiber, and I had nothing to lose, so I tried it. But it was very, very short-lived stint.
Sure.
After being on the Rush 87 or High Pro.
And so that's what I wanted to ask you about, because, I started in carbon fiber and then similar to you, went to the High Pro, and then now I have the Rogue. What have you noticed for you has been the difference between carbon fiber and then wearing the Rush feet?
The dead spot.
Yeah.
Right. The biggest thing for me was the dead spot and the roll off. Now I'm a big guy. I top out at right around 300 right now. I'm dropping weight, but it's still there. So I have to have a high category in both, in Rush and in anything else. But with the carbon fiber, they had to, obviously the category had to be so high so it wouldn't shatter, that the roll off of the toe was non-existent. The feedback from the foot, as far as proprioception is concerned, terrible. And when I'm trying to do stuff like what I do, off in the woods, in swamps, uneven terrain, and, like in rivers where you literally can't see what you're stepping on, I'd hit that toe on something and I would buckle my knee every time because there was no give.
Sure.
With the Rush, with the High Pro and the Rogue, it's not only is it a smoother, just walking on, let's just say concrete, the difference is very apparent. Now I had a smooth gait with either, but that's me adjusting my body to the foot. And then when I went from carbon fiber to the Rush, I didn't have to adjust my body to the foot. I didn't have to fight that dead spot when you come down off the heel and you hit that middle slap,
Right.
I had to almost relearn how to walk naturally because of the Rush foot. The Rush foot is such a natural, from heel to toe, is such a natural roll all the way through and then off the toe that it at first it seemed very squishy. But after about a week or so of walking on it, or more or less a couple days, actually, my body started not hurting. My hip didn't hurt.
Yeah.
My knee didn't hurt. I'm like, oh, all right, well, this is how it's supposed to be.
Right. Yeah, you're spot on there, because that's one of the things that I noticed switching from carbon fiber to Rush was things didn't hurt as much. And then when I switched to the Rogue, I was telling our regional sales rep for Rush, I was like, after about 6 to 8 weeks, I said, I noticed things hurt even less. Of course, that vertical loading pylon really helps when you're twisting and turning and things. So that for me, that made all the difference in the world.
Absolutely.
So you and I first met in person this year at the Amputee Coalition Conference in Louisville, Kentucky. And
yes, we did.
It's a crazy event. We had a lot of fun. But what's your take on the conference? What do you look forward to about the conference?
Honestly, the conference for me, obviously, this is my first time going to the conference, and for me, the thing that struck me the heaviest, and I use that word intentionally, it was very emotional.
Yeah.
It was being surrounded by people who get it,
right,
who understand. if they're staring at you, it's because they're checking out what kind of gear you're running.
Exactly.
And you don't have to try to explain to somebody who doesn't understand what you go through. You don't have to try to explain to them, hey, I don't feel like going to dinner with you guys tonight because my leg hurts and it's because of this. Right. If you say you can't go somewhere, they're like, oh yeah, no, you've had a hard day. We get it, you know?
Yeah.
And not having to worry, being able to literally just relax around the people that I'm surrounded by.
Right. And
just exist.
Yeah. One of the things that I've told a dozen people at least, I said for the first time, being somewhere in society, I said, I felt completely normal. I didn't feel like an outcast or like I didn't belong somewhere. And that for me, that was really incredible. You go out and, some of us that like me, I wear shorts all the time. So anyone who sees me knows immediately I'm an amputee, but some people wear pants and their gait is so amazing. It's hard to tell if they're an amputee. And so sometimes you get out in public and people be like, oh, well, I'm an amputee. And like, yeah, me too. But when you're at this kind of event, no one's like, oh, I have this problem because I'm an amputee. Well, duh, there's like 1,200 of us here who are.
Exactly.
And, so it makes it better for us. And the other thing that I noticed is, I swim a lot. And so when we're at the conference and I'm getting in and out of the pool, I know the people that are looking at me, they're not judging me. They're just looking to see how I'm doing it. Because maybe they wonder, hey, maybe there's something I can learn or pick up or whatever. And it's the same thing that I would do. So it's a different world and it makes it nice.
I thoroughly agree with that.
So tell me about some of the activities. You do a lot. You're involved in a lot of really cool activities. People should really follow you on Instagram. And I know that you also have a YouTube channel. But what are some of the activities that you're involved in now?
Well, since my amputation, I have taken up competitive shooting in several styles. I shoot 3-gun, I shoot USPSA, and I shoot IDPA. Basically, those are the USPSA and IDPA are competitive pistols.
Okay.
Leagues, which is shooting targets while moving from position to position, different scenarios.
Okay.
So there's some running involved, there's movement involved, kneeling, stooping, squatting. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. 3-gun is exactly that. It's every stage. Some of the stages you'll use all 3 guns, a pistol, a shotgun, and a rifle. Some stages you'll use just a rifle, just a shotgun, just a pistol. But it's similar in the fact that it's every stage is a different scenario. Most of them have movement involved, running from position 1 to position 2, engaging targets in a specific array. But it's a lot of fun. It's something that I just said to myself one day. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go do that. I literally, my first competition was a classifier for IDPA. I went in with no knowledge of how to do it. I just said, that sounds like fun. I think I'll go do that. So I got into that. I have gotten back into martial arts. I was in martial arts when I was much, much younger. I was in Kung Fu.
Okay.
And I've been wanting to get back into martial arts for a long time. I couldn't find anything that really tripped my trigger. I got my children involved with Taekwondo, which is a Korean martial art. And there's another Korean martial art, which is almost hand in hand, which is Hapkido. So my kids are doing Taekwondo and I joined Hapkido, which is a lot of, nerve locks, grappling. It's not a lot of high flying kicks and stuff like that, but it's taking people's balance, diverting energy. As far as, if somebody throws a punch, you don't try to block the punch, you move the punch out of the way. Nerve locks, wrist locks, arm bars, grappling, things of that nature. So,
okay.
I also shoot, archery competitively.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And fly fishing, hunting, both bow hunting, rifle hunting, black powder hunting, bird hunting. Yeah, so I've got a few hobbies.
You do, and the thing that I just love about your story is that you're more active than a large majority of amputees, and we know that's one reason or another. Everybody's at a different stage in their journey, and so we don't expect everyone to be out and be an adaptive athlete or anything like that. But one of the things that I wanted to ask, I was really curious about. When I was a kid, I hunted a lot with my dad and my older brother, and not so much these days, but maybe again someday. But one of the things I noticed in your story is that, as an amputee, you're climbing into deer stands. And have you found that to be any more difficult than it was before you became an amputee, or is it better or the same?
It depends on the deer stand. Now, there's ground blinds, which there's not much different there.
Right.
There's ladder stands, like a ladder stand that you can lean up against a tree, essentially.
Right.
And that's, I wouldn't say it's more difficult. It's just a little different. Instead of taking 2 full steps at a time, I step with my good leg, bring my prosthetic, my prosthetic leg up, and then one step with my good leg prosthetic. So it takes a half again as long to get up.
Okay.
But the one part that I haven't retaken that I really want to is climbing trees. As a youth and growing into manhood, one part of hunting that I've always enjoyed is moving with the animals. Like, the animals don't just come to the same spot every time.
Right.
So being able to get out early fall, find out where they're moving, and then take a climbing tree stand, which is literally you strap your feet to a bottom part and you hold on to the top part. There's a 2-piece stand, and you incrementally climb up a tree. You just go find a good tree that's near where you want to hunt, and you climb it. That's one part that I've started kind of trying to adapt my climbing tree stand to the new way, but you need 2 ankles technically to do it, to disengage the bottom platform. So that's one part that I haven't been able to do yet.
Okay.
But I will find a way. But other than that, moving with the animals on the ground, like still hunting, spot and stalk hunting, and getting into stands, I haven't had at the beginning. Obviously there was a learning curve, but I would say essentially that's made my life as an amputee much easier, because if you can walk in the woods in the dark on, completely unknown, unvisible terrain, then you can walk anywhere.
Absolutely. So, you've been through a lot and you've overcome a lot. What has kept you motivated through everything to keep going, to keep pursuing your hobbies and doing the things that you love? Honestly,
I just have to notice who's watching me.
Okay.
And that's my kids.
Yeah.
My kids. I have a great support structure, which is so utterly important.
Right.
My friends that I've had since I was, 16, 14, 15, 16 years old, they were the first ones to make fun of me. So, like after losing my leg, they were the first ones to make amputee jokes. So it's like having that support structure is really important. Having a wife that stands behind me and has thoroughly been my rock. She has been there through all the pain, blood. I mean, you name it. She's been there. So that's been very important. But when I look at my kids, I need to not just keep moving, but excel, to push forward, to do more.
Okay.
Because they're watching. I need to set an example for them that no matter what happens, you keep moving.
Absolutely. It's absolutely great advice. So what are some of the lessons that you've learned about yourself since you've become an amputee?
Pain is real. Both physical and, mental, emotional.
Sure.
And don't fight either.
Right.
If your body is screaming at you, it's for a reason. We can push past certain pain barriers, but there's some pain that you just need to listen to. Emotional pain is the same thing.
Right.
We all get it. We all, a lot of us in the disabled community, not just amputees, there's social anxiety, there's anger, there's fear, there's frustration. Like, don't fight those. Let them flow. Let the tears flow.
Right.
I'm a big, rough, tumbly hunting man. I'll cry. I don't care. Like, don't fight it. Listen to it and let it flow. That's probably the biggest thing I learned about myself is how to listen to the pain.
Right. And you're right. That's absolutely important. I wish that more people would not only learn that lesson, but would share it, because I'm sure other people have realized that, but would share it. Because I think this is one of the most important things as an amputee to learn. And maybe not even for amputees. We have people that listen that they're not amputees, but they have other differences and things that they deal with in their life. And to learn that lesson, I think really helps people to recover and to be able to move on with life.
I thoroughly agree. And whether it's recovering or whether it's overcoming some sort of a difference in any part of life, any person, you need to listen to the pain.
Right. We talked about prosthetic feet and, using the rush feet compared to carbon fiber feet. And one of the things we had this conversation, several of us, for everything I say the other day, it could have been 3 weeks ago, but I say the other day, we were talking about vacuum. And of course I have the Limb Logic, which I love, but I know for the things that you do, you're out in the woods and in the swamp and rivers and things. And so a pump like that, if it fails and you're out there, you're stuck. So what kind of socket?
I've had it happen.
What kind of socket do you use that helps you be able to do all the things that you love to do?
Essentially, it is a vacuum system without a vacuum pump.
Okay.
If that makes any sense.
It does.
Technically would be considered a suction system.
Okay.
What I have is a flexible inner socket that interfaces with my liner.
Okay.
And my residual limb. And then I have the carbon fiber outer socket. The type of suspension, like I say, from the pylon up, essentially is a vacuum system. I have a sleeve, a vacuum sleeve that goes up to my skin.
Okay.
And below the pylon is where it's a little different. Now, again, it's more suction because all I have is a brass fitting coming out of the socket, a tube, like a little flexible neoprene tube.
Okay.
And a check valve, just a check valve. That's it. It lets the air out, but not back in. Okay. So on my normal sock changes or when I just put my leg on to just kind of tromp around the house or light work, I'll just walk and it'll expel the air and I'll end up at about minus 10 inches of vacuum.
Okay.
So about 10 pounds of vacuum, however you want to call it. But I also can manually extract air to draw more vacuum. So very simply, I have a horse syringe, just not joking, a plastic horse syringe,
right,
and a piece of silicone aquarium tubing.
Okay.
And I hook that to the end of the check valve, and I draw out the air that way about 20 times, and I'll have about 20 pounds of vacuum, which is approximately where most elevated vacuum pumps. That's about where they'll draw to. About 20 to 25 pounds of vacuum is about max for things like the Ottobock E-Series and P-Series. I'm not too sure about I think it's the Limb Logic system. I don't know what their max draw is, but generally it's around 20 to 25.
Right.
So when I'm doing very heavy activities, like I'm about to get in the river and I'm going to go walk 5 miles, in water, I draw heavy vacuum because I need that extra. Really, it's more for proprioception.
Sure.
Just knowing where my limb is through the process. So
Absolutely. One of the things that I found that was unique that, I mean, a lot of things, when you respond to a post or you post something, there's a lot of opportunities for people to learn and things that you say. And one of the things that, that didn't even occur to me a while back on Facebook, I had asked a question about what kind of walking sticks people use, because I was looking to get some walking sticks and try to start doing some hiking and some more rugged terrain kind of stuff. And you gave a really unique answer to that, I thought, and basically about making your own. Where would someone, if someone's listening and they're like, well, you know what, I'm because I'm not super handy like that. But if someone is and wants to do that, where would you recommend they start in that process if they're looking to make their own walking sticks?
Well, when I said make your own walking stick, I didn't necessarily mean, take it into a wood shop and carve pretty things into it and shellac it. I literally meant you get to a spot where you're hiking and you look at the terrain and you say, that looks a little bit more than what I can handle. You literally find a 15, 16, 20-foot sapling that's good and straight. Normally popple, popple is everywhere. Right. Just just hack it off at the ground, cut it to whatever length you want. And there you go. You got a perfectly straight natural walking stick. That's literally what I have never actually made my own fancy, I guess I would say, walking stick. But, at the very beginning, especially when I started river walking, I literally went and found some popples, some good stout popples, and I cut them down. Okay. Like really heavy. These were like about 2 inches across. Popples, and I used those for support when I was walking in the river the first time. Okay. So you're out there and you're super active and you've overcome and you're doing amazing things and you have a genuinely inspirational story. But we see people all the time who are amputees, and either they're struggling physically with learning to walk or learning to do things, or they're struggling emotionally with the effects of losing a limb. What kind of advice or encouragement would you give them? Reach out. That's the biggest thing. Like, don't keep it all to yourself. And that's it's a very common thing. I did it. I'm sure you did it at some point. Yeah. A lot of us do that, where we try to, I need to take this all myself. And really we're a community, not, if you have a support structure at home, that's great. But in today's age of social media and technology, there are so many groups out there, on Facebook, for example, where there's genuine people like you, people like me, people like the Todd, that I had to throw him in there. But absolutely. We're there. Right. And you go to some of these amputee communities on Facebook, and some of them you're going to get 5 million answers and people saying, sending thoughts and prayers. Right. And then other times, I've reached out to people as opposed to responding to a post. If I see somebody who's in need or is hurting and says, I feel lost, or, I just don't know what to do, or I fell and I've hit rock bottom. Instead of responding to the post on the actual page, I will attempt to send them a private message and say, hey, if you want to talk, I get it. We're all here for each other. If you got anything you want to say or any questions you want to ask, just feel free to reach out. Right. And I've made a few friends like that. I'll offer my phone number if needed, because sometimes, doing it on the internet is sort of, typing doesn't really have the same feeling as being able to actually talk to somebody. Face to face would be, more often that would be the best, but being able to hear somebody's voice and saying, you aren't alone. I get it. We're here for you. Absolutely. And, and you're right. Typing sometimes it becomes this impersonal thing, and I don't mind it a lot for short messages, but I hate when someone sends me like 5 paragraphs and expects me to type back 5 paragraphs. I actually have a friend that I don't know if a lot of people know. I didn't even know this was possible, but so I was just like, she's like, how's your day? And I was like, it's okay.
And so she knew something was off. But rather than typing me this big long thing, you can actually send a voice message through Facebook Messenger. And so she started doing that. And that's just amazing because, sometimes if I'm at the office or something, I can't take a personal call. And so, but to be able to put my headphones in and click that message and just hear that encouragement for the day. And so people that may not know about that, I've never mentioned that on here before, but if you're in a situation where you just want to encourage someone like that through a message, people that are comfortable doing that could always just send a voice message as well. Maybe brighten someone's day and give them a little encouragement to keep making it through.
Exactly.
As you said, anything that we can do to help encourage someone or to help motivate someone or even to help someone get some answers, because, I don't have all of the answers. I don't even necessarily have a few of the answers. I know what's worked for me, but as you know, what works for one amputee might not necessarily work for another. So it's just everybody's got to find their own spot in this.
Exactly.
One of the things that you and I both did when we were at the Amputee Coalition Conference was we went to attended the peer visitor training. And we thought that myself and you and the Todd were going to end up in the same class, and that didn't happen. And you were in a different class from me. What was your experience like? What did you take from that training?
Well, I got some good insight, as far as reaching out to new amputees, like a fresh amputee, brand new, just happened. When we did the mock visits with our other trainees that we were there with,
right.
I was with a couple of people that really threw curveballs. As far as, I'm really doubting myself, and my family keeps telling me just to keep pushing on and to get over it. And, it was like all the different angles. Like, I know what I went through, and how I handled it, but hearing from other people and a lot of those mock meetings, like the mock peer visits that we did, I know I personally, through some of my personal experience, like what I went through.
Absolutely.
Into the questions that I was asking. And I'm sure the other people did too. So like being able to hear the fears, the concerns from other people, and learning from, this is what I would do in that situation, or this is what I would address that, to help that person along. That was the biggest thing I took away, is really learning multiple ways to address the concerns that a new amputee would have, or the fears, or the anger, or, however it's manifesting itself in the different phases of mourning for the loss.
Right. So today I've been talking with Fritz Rudy, and for more information about Fritz, I would encourage you follow him on Twitter at Hopalong_Fritz. Follow him on Instagram at Fritz_Hop_A_Long_Rudy. And connect with him on Facebook at Fritz.Rudy. Fritz, thanks for taking time out of your day to join me on revAMPd. It's been great.
I do appreciate it, Brian. It's been great talking to you.
You too. Thanks so much. You've been listening to revAMPd, the #1 amputee podcast hosted by an amputee and brought to you by Dilatory Orthotics and Prosthetics in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. If you've enjoyed today's episode, leave us a review on iTunes or give us a like on Facebook. I'm Brian Mosier. I invite you to visit our website, www.revampedpodcast.com, and connect with us on Facebook at revAMPd Podcast.